Joining me now, Lee Turner. He's a former British ambassador. You would have been dealing with this situation, when you were in office, and it's hugely delicate, isn't it? Just explain to us, what the considerations are in the Foreign Office, because obviously this hasn't been announced yet. The Palace aren't, dealing with it yet. The Foreign Office has to give it the go-ahead.
That's right. Officially, it hasn't yet been confirmed that any visit is taking place, but people have been talking about this for months. And it certainly comes at a time of immense UK-US tension over Iran. We've got the UK public very lukewarm about the war, sort of feeling that the US didn't consult its allies before going to war, and people aren't quite sure what the reason is. And conversely, as you were just mentioning, President Trump keeps abusing Sir Keir Starmer. We also had President Trump's a bit in the nation's bad books for his comments about the UK and other allies not fighting on the front lines in Iraq and Afghanistan. So all this is going on in the background. And then we have Emily Thornberry, who's a Labour MP, so a member of the governing party, who is chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, urging caution about the visit. And the idea is that having the King and Queen visit the US with this war in the background would somehow imply endorsement both of the war and of President Trump himself.
So if you were UK ambassador in Washington right now, trying to negotiate this, how would you play it? Because, as you say, this is the balance. Would the King be embarrassed on one side, but on the other side, are you going to infuriate President Trump because it would be seen as a slap in the face if the King didn't go for what clearly is a planned visit, even if it hasn't been announced?
Yeah, that's right. It's a very delicate thing. And I think when Emily Thornberry, this Labour MP, said this on Radio 4, so mainstream British radio channel, she was really flying a kite to try and assess the public mood. It's become quite party political in the UK. We've had the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, saying the visit should go ahead. Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform, said the same. And it does seem to be pretty finely balanced in terms of public opinion. There's been a survey saying 46% of Brits think that the visit should be cancelled, 36% think it should go ahead. I mean, I've seen the King, obviously, in action on the international stage very often, and he's immensely experienced. There's no risk whatsoever that he will somehow act the supplicant or bend the knee to President Trump. So there's a decent argument to be made that his presence wouldn't really risk being seen as endorsing Trump or his war. As you say, cancellation would be a major step, but it may be that the government will just choose to delay a decision. I think that's what I would be advising if I was ambassador in Washington, not to have had that pleasure. If they delay this decision, the problem may solve itself if public opinion swings strongly one way or the other, or maybe the war might come to an end.
I guess, the ambassador's role in the US right now is trying to get both sides to agree that a delay is better. If the White House doesn't, then that's when it starts getting really tricky, doesn't it? But are people missing the point here? Because isn't that the whole point of our system, that you have the Prime Minister representing the government and the ups and downs in the relationship, but the King is there to represent, the deeper ties between two nations, not necessarily even with the President of the United States, and to show that over time they are long-term allies, particularly in a year when they're talking about kicking the Brits out and showing the healing off the back of that.
Absolutely right. I remember King Charles giving a speech once in which he, when he was Prince of Wales, in which he talked about his recollections of meeting JF Kennedy and Nixon. And he's met probably all the US presidents of living memory. And he is really a symbol, if you like, of obviously of sovereignty, but also of continuity. So it's not impossible that you can separate out the role that the King plays in terms of the long-term relationship between the UK and the US, which I think most people in both countries would agree is important and should continue, and arguments about President Trump and his things he says, and about the Iran war?
Well, it'll probably be great TV if he does go over. And as you say, the King's pretty experienced at this sort of thing, so I'm sure he can handle it. Lee Turner, appreciate it.
Yes.